Hello and welcome, dear students. As you can see, we'll be practicing tough enough questions for the Para Jumbles questions of your CAT exam. Alright, I think Para Jumbles, a lot of you consider it as very simple, but I have compiled the most difficult questions I could find, and as I'll be discussing the questions, I'll also be discussing the tricks or the clues that you are supposed to look for while solving such questions. Alright, I've also compiled these questions in a manner that I have found, like you are aware of the 4 statement and 5 statement questions for Para Jumbles, but there was another pattern that I could find, that was that statement 1 and statement 6 were fixed, and these 4 statements you were supposed to rearrange again. Alright, so that is your another type. And lastly, we have this odd one out type pattern. What happens that you will be you'll be presented with 5 different statements, and 4 out of these 5 statements make a coherent paragraph. You're supposed to figure those 4 statements and find the odd one out. So that 5th statement will not fit well into this paragraph, and that will be your answer. Like that will be the odd one out here. All right. So these are the types of questions that I've compiled. And in this handout, you'll get 20 questions overall. Eventually, we'll just start solving these questions, okay? Let's go and look at the first one. Okay, there are 4 sentences before you. This interpretation assumes that the human mind is predisposed to seek symmetry even in phenomena that resist patterning. Several theories on chaos have emerged from efforts to impose predictable structures on unpredictable behavior. Consequently, scholars warn against overextending deterministic explanations to inherently stochastic domains. See, the main challenge of this question is the difficult vocab present here, alright? And in the case where you don't know a lot of jargons or you don't know a lot of terms, then you have to stick with the basic logic that you have been taught, that please find the main idea and then just follow the nouns or pronouns or the adjective that follow that main idea or the main noun or your subject, alright? And also, since you are finding a lot of jargons here, this might be a sign for you to start reading more extensively and just see that what kind of stuff you are missing out, and maybe, as I always tell my students, to broaden their horizons so that they do not encounter such jargons often, okay? Alright, let's try to solve this together. First, in the first sentence, it says this interpretation, so I will not see this as my first starting sentence. Again, in B sentence, it says yet, so I will reject this one also as my introductory sentence. And several theories on chaos, okay, this seems to be the right one. Consequently, again, consequently is an addition word and it joins 2 sentences, and consequently here also is indicating about the chronology of the paragraph. So I will not take it as my introductory sentence, okay? Alright, let's start, and to me, statement C is your starting statement, right? So now out of these, let's see which one is the next sentence. Several theories on chaos have emerged from efforts to impose predictable structures on unpredictable behavior. Okay, somehow this is talking about a theory, right? Yet these attempts often obscure the inherent randomness, okay? Consequently, again, D is probably the last sentence, because the words like consequently or frequently or yet, although, all these end up in the last, so I will neglect D option here and I will be deciding from A and B. Again, yet is the word, yet is a connector used when you are contrasting two theories. So we are left with statement number A. So the next one in the configuration would be A. And since I'll be taking the D as my last statement, then C would be the, B would be the right configuration. So CABD is the configuration for this question. I hope it's making sense right now. Alright, let's move to the next question. Okay, critics argue that emotional authenticity has been compromised by the mechanization of artistic techniques. With the advent of digital tools, creative expression now oscillates between human intention and algorithmic suggestion. Artists increasingly rely on software to accelerate production across visual, musical, and literary forms. This tension has reshaped long-standing debates on the role of intuition versus computation in art. In these four statements, I feel that statement number A and C might be the introductory sentence, because this tension, obviously D will not be, like D will obviously following some sentence and not the starting sentence, right? With the advent of, again, the sentence number B is sort of giving an example or support. So critics argue that emotional authenticity has been compromised. Artists increasingly rely, with the advent of digital tools. See, B is talking about digital tools and artists are relying on software. So B is introducing something and C is sort of supporting. So I will make a set of B and C together. Are you understanding how we are correlating these two? Right? Similarly, C is supporting the B statement. And lastly, A is talking about how it is an issue, because it is talking about critics. What critics are doing? Critics are pointing out the mistakes, that like, why are you using digital softwares? So critics, one sentence will come after C, and lastly we're left with statement number D. So that would be the configuration. Yes, BCAD. Alright, I think we're done with the questions which are having 4 sentences, okay? I'll go forward and try the questions with 5 sentences as para jumbles. Alright, see, increasing the number of statements only increases the complexity of the sentence. Now let's see and try to solve this one. Okay, the earliest attempts to model consciousness focused on mapping neural activity to discrete functional values. Advances in cognitive science later revealed that these modules interact in highly nonlinear ways. This revelation undermined the simplistic assumption that consciousness could be decomposed into independent. Okay, this one's probably the easiest question, because I've only read the 3 sentences and I'm sure A, B, C would go together. But I'll still read the other options so that you can get the idea as well. This revelation undermined the simplistic assumption that consciousness could be decomposed into independent parts. Instead, contemporary theories emphasize emergent properties arising from distributed neural processes. As a consequence, the study of consciousness now requires integrating computational, biological, and phenomenological approaches. Right, as I said, consequence, as a consequence or consequently, these kind of statements go at the last. Right, this is understood that this will not be our introductory sentence. Similarly, if you read all of these sentences, you will figure out that A sentence is talking about the earliest attempts. And chronologically, the word earliest comes the first. So A would be the starting sentence in this case. Then, yes, B sentence is talking about something getting revealed and C is talking about revelation. So I will club B and C together. As I told you in the beginning, all of these sentences are already arranged in a coherent manner. So that would be the answer. Okay, let's try another question from this section. Okay, let's try the 10th one. Yet these measures seldom address the structural factors that perpetuate informational inequality. Modern societies increasingly rely on data-driven systems to allocate resources and opportunities. Policymakers respond by implementing transparency protocols intended to reduce algorithmic bias. But without systematic reform, such protocols amount to surface-level adjustments. Consequently, scholars advocate for rethinking the very foundations of digital governance. Right? Again, I'll go by judging each of the options and see which one suits best to be our introductory sentence. See, A contains yet, so I will not be choosing A as my introductory sentence. Modern societies increasingly rely. Okay, B sentence is introducing a topic, so yes, we can consider this. Policymakers respond by implementing transparency protocols. See, this sentence does look like an introductory sentence, but the major issue here is that it is talking about response. And what do you respond to when something has already been offered to you? So I will not go ahead with the C. B will be my introductory sentence for now. Let's see the D one. But D is starting with the connector conjunction but. So obviously D will also be negated because you do not start a paragraph or a coherent paragraph with a conjunction. So I will be dropping D as well. Lastly, as I told you, consequently again will not be an introductory sentence. So we are left with B. Okay. Now, out of all of these, modern societies increasingly rely on data-driven systems to allocate resources and opportunities. A is talking about some sort of measures. So we'll see where these measures have been applied. But without systematic, and consequently, both of these will not be following B at least. So it is understood that A is sort of following C because C is talking about policymakers doing something and then A is talking how these measures are not enough. So C will be following B and A will be following your C sentence. Lastly, we're left with D and E, which will be the best configuration in this case. Alright, let's try another. Let's try this one. The philosophy of time has long wrestled with reconciling subjective experience with physical theories. Meanwhile, psychological research shows that humans perceive temporal intervals inconsistently. This inconsistency complicates attempts to align phenomenological accounts with scientific explanations. Physicists continue to debate whether time is fundamental or emergent within the structure of the universe. The resulting discourse reveals how deeply intuition diverges from mathematical representation. Again, these 5 statements are full of technical and scientific jargons, and if you are not an avid reader, you are bound to struggle with these kind of questions. So right now, if we don't know a lot of words, then we'll stick with our basic rules. I'm also getting some answers. B, C, A, D, E for which one? 9th or 10th? Because B, C, A, D is for 10th. We're trying the 9th one right now. So, meanwhile, the inconsistency and the resulting discourse. All of these will not be a starting sentence. Yes, 10th, your answer is right. For 10th, BCAD is right. So we are left with physicists continue to debate and A statement, the philosophy of time. So I cannot really assume any introductory sentence here. So I'll try my luck with other sentences. Psychological research shows that humans perceive temporal intervals intervals inconsistently. This inconsistency, so this is understood that C will follow B and these two will end up together, right? And now either E is going to follow D or E is going to follow A. Since A is introducing a philosophy, right, and D is introducing only the debate. In sentence number C, scientific explanation has been introduced and D is introducing your physicist. So I'll say D comes after C. And A is your introductory sentence. So again, this would be the configuration. I hope it's making sense. I'm sorry, for 9th you're saying B, C, A, D, E. How can you start a sentence with B? No, actually gut feeling does not help during the exam because your gut can be affected with a lot of factors. So don't go with your gut feeling actually. Go with the logic first. And the logic says if you're saying it should be starting with B, then how is it making sense to you? Alright, so go with the logic as I picked the logic that only A and D out of these 5 could be your introductory sentences. And in this case, we were confused with between A and B. So I rather started making sets and I could make a set of B, C together. That made things easier and then you can go with your gut feeling. But वही चीज़ है, like if you are given 4 options, you cannot straight up go with your gut feeling and mark single answer. You have to at least do some calculated guessing or some calculated elimination to at least rid yourself of 2 options. Then only you can mark and go with the feeling of your gut. So just don't go into that blindly and focus on what you have learned so far. Alright, let's try this one. Question number 12. In these kind of questions, you are given 2 fixed sentences. Okay, they will not change their positions. That means your introductory sentence and your conclusive sentence both are present and they will not switch their positions. Only these 4 need to be arranged. Let's try and solve this one now. Comparative methodology offers insights into the recurring narrative patterns found across civilizations. These patterns often emerge from attempts to explain natural phenomena or existential anxieties. However, scholars caution against attributing universality without accounting for local variations. Some myths evolve through cross-cultural contact, absorbing motifs from neighboring societies. This fluidity complicates efforts to trace their origins with precision. Therefore, understanding myth requires balancing broad thematic analysis with contextual sensitivity. See, it is understood that it is talking about recurring narrative patterns, and statement A is also talking about these patterns. This pronoun used here is the indicative of that pattern being followed. So statement A would be the first statement in the 4 sentences. Now, again, it is talking about this fluidity complicates. This fluidity. So now I know that this is again a demonstrative pronoun. So it is probably following something mentioned in sentence B or C or A maybe. Let's see which one. Here C is talking about some myths evolve through cross-cultural contact, absorbing motifs from neighboring society. And B will not be followed by D because B again is a follow-up statement to something, since it is saying however. You know the word connecting however, connector word however basically says that there is a shift in opinion. Okay, all right. A is saying that some patterns are emerging, and B is saying do not attribute universality without accounting for local variations. B is mentioning local variation, C is talking about how that works, and D is just justifying statement number C. So A, B, C, D would be the configuration in this case. Questions are difficult, but options are easy, apparently. Let's see. All right, let's see question number 14. Urban planners increasingly promote 15-minute cities as a solution to sprawling metropolitan growth. Critics argue that such models ignore socioeconomic disparities across neighborhoods. Proponents highlight reduced commute times and enhanced sustainability. Implementation, however, requires reorganizing existing infrastructure at significant cost. This challenge is compounded by varying political incentives within municipal administrations. As a result, the feasibility of such urban redesigns remains contested. Urban planners are increasingly they are promoting some sort of idea. Okay, out of these four, critics argue, this is a different argument put forth. This argument is different than the argument mentioned in S1. So obviously A is not going to follow S1. Similarly, this challenge, this is starting with a demonstrative pronoun. So I will not be taking this one as well, since it's talking about some challenge and we are yet to see a challenge. Implementation is a challenge. So D might follow C here. That's just a guess at this point. Proponents highlight reduced commute times and enhanced sustainability. This is talking about what 15-minute cities mean. So B would be your first sentence in the arrangement. Let's see what's going to follow B now. Implementation, however, requires, so that means C is going to follow B because C is talking about the actual implementation. Implementation, however, requires reorganizing existing infrastructure at significant cost. Critics argue that such models ignore socio-economic disparities across neighborhoods. This is talking about cost, and this sentence is talking about socio-economic disparities, which basically means that not everyone has the same expensive capacity, or not everyone can spend the same amount of money. So obviously A is going to follow C. And lastly, we're talking about D. This is going to be your arrangement. All right. See, this was just a rough guess, but logic proved it wrong. B, C, A, D would be the answer. Okay. C is not continuing the line of reasoning of A, because in this B is defining what they are meaning by the model. C is talking about another aspect that okay, आपने on paper एक model present कर दिया है, but उसका implementation, what about the implementation? So C is just putting forth the idea of implementation. Now, what is wrong with implementation? What actual issues are arising? वो बताया गया है A sentence में कि ऐसे मॉडल के साथ ये प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है हमको, क्योंकि हाँ आपकी बात तब मैं मान लेती C follow up statement है A का, when however would not have been present here. However is obviously containing the contrasting statement. और A और C दोनों ही सेम बात बोल रहे हैं, तो C कैसे contrasting statement हो सकता है for A, but C can be a contrasting statement for B, right? क्योंकि B में everything positive has been stated and C में something negative has been stated. So even though configuration might seem confusing right now, but if you go logically, you will see that only C can follow B. Or conversely, C cannot follow A. Yeah, again, haste makes waste. So BCAD, I hope it's the combination is clear to you now. Okay. Once you sit down to solve these kind of questions, you also realize that you might also be having some sort of drawbacks. And the whole point of this exercise is to figure out your own drawbacks and own mistakes. Right? Okay. Now, let me see what questions are left. We have tried 2 questions from each section so far. Let's move on to the last section. Let's try the 17th question. In this, 5 statements have been presented before you. 4 out of these 5 statements make a coherent paragraph. You have to figure out the one which does not fit and that in that coherent paragraph. Okay, and these questions actually take a lot of time. Based on my experience with students, these questions take a lot of time and there's a high chance of making a mistake because often you miss the context. You are so engaged in making a coherent paragraph, you miss the whole context and you may choose the wrong answer. So let's try this one first. Give it a try first. Literary modernism rejected traditional narrative structures in favor of fragmented introspective forms. Writers experimented with stream of consciousness techniques to capture subjective experience. Relatedly, computational linguistics seeks to automate the extraction of semantic patterns in text. These stylistic innovations reflected broader disillusionment following global conflict. The movement's influence reshaped global literature throughout the 20th century. I think this is a fairly easy one. C has no, what? C has no, C is the odd one out. Yes, if you go by the structure, B is talking about something called stream of consciousness technique. It is a technique of writing. Novels are written like in the late 20th centuries, new novels were written and these were like Virginia Woolf or James Joyce were the recipients, like the people who promoted stream of consciousness technique for writing. And similarly, the movement's influence, because talking about this movement, so yes, movement's influence, the E also belongs to this. D, these stylistic innovations reflected broader disillusionment. Fine. And relatedly, computational. See, this is not mentioning anything. It is talking about computational linguistic, automating the extraction of semantic patterns in text. Other than that, A, B, D, E will form a coherent paragraph if you look closely. So yes, C would be the answer in this case. All right. Yes, very good. So it's making sense. Fine. That means it's making sense. Okay, let's talk about 18. Memory consolidation relies heavily on neural processes occurring during sleep. Experiments show that external stimuli can influence dream content in measurable ways. Some neuroscientists argue that dreaming serves to stimulate threats encountered in ancestral environments. The global shipping industry faces unprecedented challenges due to port congestion. Collectively, these findings illustrate how sleep contributes to both cognition and survival. Again, it's an easier one, I think. You can figure out what is the answer. Exactly. D is the answer, because D is simply talking about global shipping industry, which has no relation with other sentences whatsoever. If I ask you to arrange the other 4 sentences into a coherent paragraph, can you do that? Can you do that for me? I would say A is your starting sentence. Then nothing, I am just trying to tickle your brain because we have already solved the question. A, B, C, E. Experiments show that external stimuli can influence dream content in measurable ways. Collectively, these findings illustrate that how sleep contributes to both cognition and survival. Yes, it is making more sense. A, B, C, E is right. Very good. You also corrected my answer. Fine. Let's go and start solving again from starting. Let's see another question from 4 statement. Yes, it's having 4 statements. Let's try and solve question number 3. These discoveries challenge the long-held belief that early human societies were uniformly hierarchical and rigid. Recently, archaeological surveys revealed intricate networks of trade between small, seemingly isolated communities. Such findings suggest the presence of complex systems of negotiation, reciprocity, and even shared ritual practices. The cumulative evidence indicates that social organization in antiquity was far more fluid than previously assumed. See, when something starts with recent, there's a high chance that it comes above. Like it may be your starting sentence or it may be following your starting sentence. So keep that in mind when you encounter recent. The cumulative evidence, this one will not sit well as an introductory sentence. Similarly, this one is starting with such and this is starting with these. So these both the sentences are starting with pronouns. So I will reject these as my introductory sentence and select B as my introductory sentence. Now B is talking about some archaeological survey that is indicating of a network of trade, isn't it? Such findings, again it is talking about survey and survey has findings, so I will say C will follow the B statement. And then these discoveries challenge, lastly we're left with D. This will be the configuration in this case. I hope it's making sense. Right, let's go ahead. Such projections, however, rarely account for disruptions caused by emergent technologies. Traditional economic forecasting relies heavily on historical data to extrapolate future trends. As a result, long-term predictions frequently diverge from actual developments in high innovation industries. Analysts therefore recommend incorporating adaptive models that embrace volatility rather than suppress it. You have to stay in the moment, you know. Presence of mind should be that good. We have already moved from the odd one out questions. It's all right, no problem. Just try to solve this one now. 4th question. This is comparatively easier. Again, to repeat the instructions for you, we are to rearrange these. These are already jumbled and we have to rearrange these into a coherent paragraph. Out of these four, as a result will not be the introductory sentence, and similarly such projection will also not be your introductory sentence. Analyst therefore. See, therefore word is itself a connector or a connector's word which tells about conclusion. So I will not be putting it as my introductory sentence again. So D will also not be your introductory sentence. We are left with B. B is putting forth the topic of traditional economic forecasting, right? And A is putting forth the issue with it, like it is introducing the topic and A is talking about the issue with it. So A would follow B and C is talking about as a result. So like there's an issue and then there's a result. Lastly, analyst therefore is talking about the conclusion in this case. Therefore itself is used for conclusion. So D would be the answer. I'm glad you can find so many points of improvement due to this exercise. Alright, let's keep solving questions together. Okay, you have to solve this one now and I'll be waiting for your response. Let's see if you have understood the point I've been trying to make so far. Please solve question number 5. I'm waiting for your response. I don't think you'll have more time than this during your exam. The paradox lies in the fact that while anonymity liberates expression, it simultaneously erodes accountability. Digital ecosystems increasingly encourage users to construct identities detached from their offline selves. The detachment produces an environment where performative behavior overshadows genuine interaction. Psychologists observe that such fragmented identities often deepen online polarization. What is the answer? B, C, A, D. You're saying B is the introductory sentence? Yes, B is the introductory sentence. And it is talking about identities being detached and this is talking about this attachment. So C will follow statement number B, right? Now what would be the next one? Such fragmented identities. This one is saying such fragmented identities. So, in my opinion, A would be the last sentence. But A is talking about some paradox. Lies in the fact that while anonymity liberates expression, it simultaneously erodes accountability. Psychologists observe that such fragmented identities often deepen online polarization. Okay. Fine. Paradox is about that you are being online all the time, you are present there, but after that, even though you are present online so very frequently, you are actually not showing your real self online. So I would say that A should follow C and D should be the last. Does that make sense? Yes, D feels like a better conclusion. Again, not going on feels, but to me, the logic of A justifies better. So that is why I am putting D as my conclusion. Okay, this question is henceforth solved. Let's go ahead and try solving the one with 5 statements. Try solving the 7th question. While the idea of universal moral principles appeals to many, such principles rarely withstand cross-cultural scrutiny. Practices considered virtuous in one society may be perceived as deeply problematic in another. This inconsistency had led scholars to argue that morality is contingent upon historical, social, and ecological context. Nevertheless, attempts to codify ethical norms persist in global governance frameworks. These attempts often reveal the tension between cultural relativism and aspirations for universal justice. C is talking about inconsistency and B, yes, B is balancing, like it is talking about what is considered virtuous in one society may be deeply problematic in another. So this is understood that C follows B, and out of all of these, A is your starting statement. Attempts to codify ethical norms. These attempts, that means D is followed by E. A, B, C, D, E is the configuration. Yes, I guess maybe that's the whole point of, like, that's another way of confusing you, because when you are in exam and you are like highly nervous, you get confused even with 2 times 2 is 4 or not. So I guess that's how these options help you deal with it. And you also get of the mindset that ठीक है, A, B, C, D भी answer हो सकता है. You can also go sequentially at times. That's not an issue. Right? Still, the only thing that you need to hold on to really strongly is the logic. Not your gut feeling, not your pressure, not the options that have been arranged, but actually the logic that you have been practicing and sharpening so far. Okay, that is the only thing that is going to help you during the exam and nothing else. Let's try this one. Let's try question number 8 now. In ecological studies, predictions often fail because they overlook the adaptive strategies of organisms. These strategies evolve rapidly in response to even subtle shifts in environmental pressures. As a result, models that treat ecosystems as static entities struggle to anticipate cascading changes. More dynamic models, however, incorporate feedback loops and interdependencies among species. Such models have begun to reshape conservative policy by emphasizing resilience rather than equilibrium. if you are getting frequently confused, if you are making frequent mistakes in this topic or any other topic, at this point I would suggest you to try PYQs and keep solving questions until and unless you get a satisfying level where you are not confused anymore. Because not only you need your tricks and logics and your practice, but also the knowledge of your own drawbacks or setbacks, right? आपको अगर अभी से पता चल जाएगा कि आई एम गेटिंग कन्फ्यूज इन दिस सेक्शन और आई टेंड टू मेक दिस काइंड ऑफ मिस्टेक, देन यू कैन एटलीस्ट वर्क ऑन इट. यू स्टिल हैव योर लाइक 15 days left. You still have ample amount of time to work on your weak areas, because at this point you can only rectify mistakes and not learn anything new. So just go by the weightage of the type of question and then rectify your mistakes. Work on those mistakes and try that you do not like work in haste, or you do not waste your marks over something that you did not think through. All right? This also has A, B, C, D, E as the logic. If there's any other different answer, please correct me if I'm wrong. Koini, let's go ahead and solve other questions. Let's work around question number 11. The transformation of global labor markets has provoked intense debate among economists. These shifts, however, vary significantly across regions depending on technological adoption. As automation accelerates, traditional employment structures continue to fragment. Yet, the demand for specialized skills rises in sectors that integrate advanced systems. Policymakers struggle to balance innovation incentives with concerns of long-term unemployment. Ultimately, the future of work remains uncertain as competing forces reshape economic priorities. Right? This is talking about transformation of global labor market, okay? These shifts, starting with a demonstrative pronoun, so this will not be your starting sentence. As automation accelerates, yet again, this one will also not be your starting statement. Policymaker, yes, B or D. We have a confusing choice between B and D. Now you are stuck with either B as your first sentence or D as your first sentence, right? अब इस केस में हम क्या करेंगे, कैसे फिगर आउट करेंगे, और हाउ आर वी गोइंग टू नेविगेट आवर वे? इंस्टेड ऑफ डिसाइडिंग बिटवीन दीज टू, you read statement number 6, right? You read this statement and see which out of these 4 sits best with this one, okay? Because it is understood that the last statement will be followed by 6th statement, so these two should have a coordination among them. Statement number B is talking about automation and C is talking about sectors that integrate advanced systems. So somehow I can say that automation B and statement number 6, as automation accelerates, traditional employment structures continue to fragment. Ultimately, the future of work remains uncertain as competing forces reshape economic priorities. Don't vibe at all. Fine. I would say D should come before sixth statement. What do you think? Policymakers struggle to balance innovation incentives with concerns of long-term unemployment. Okay. This is the order that I have come up with. BACD is the order I have come up with. Yes, policymaker statement is the D statement and future of work is the S6 one. D is also the last statement that I have chosen. BACD is the combination I am like almost going with. BACD would be the answer for this question. Tell me if that makes sense. All right, let's go solve other questions. Okay, let's solve question number 15. No, wait, not 15. 13th. This will also be the last question for today. Sorry, why A before C? Okay, what was the question? Let me just go back to it. This was the question, right? See, C is starting with yet, okay? And C is talking, whenever you are using yet is also a way of showing a contrasting argument. If you will read it, A is talking about automation getting accelerated and employment structures are fragmenting, okay? It is saying a general statement, but these shifts, however, automation acceleration is increasing. These shifts, however, vary significantly across regions depending on technological adoption, right? Vary कर रहा है different regions पे, okay? Yet, उसके बाद भी the demand for specialized skill rises in sectors that integrate advanced systems. Advanced systems कौन integrate करेगा जब automation increase हो जाएगा, automation बढ़ जाएगा आपकी technology में, तभी you will need advanced systems. तो yet की जो ये word है yet, सिर्फ इसकी वजह से मैंने इसको A के बाद लिया है, क्योंकि other than that A is talking about the shift. A is talking about the change. A is talking about how automation is increasing. That is why A is coming after B and C is coming after A. All right, let's go ahead. Try the 13th question. Debates over artificial general intelligence hinge on differing assumptions about human cognition. For others, intelligence is inseparable from embodied experience and cannot be replicated abstractly. One camp believes that sufficiently advanced algorithms could emulate all cognitive capacities. This divide reshapes research agendas, influences funding priorities worldwide. Yet both perspectives acknowledge the ethical risk associated with developing autonomous systems. Hence, discussions on AGI must grapple not only with feasibility but also with responsibilities. It is understood that one camp and for others, these two come together and A follows B. Okay. Then it's talking about this divide. So, BACD would be the answer. No, the answer would be BADC. Why, you may ask? Because BA is already talking about the difference in opinion. So it is natural that when you have talked about the difference in opinion, you will also talk about the common thing. Both perspectives acknowledge something common as well. So first you showed the difference, then you talked about the common thing, and lastly you're talking about the consequence. This divide shapes research agendas and influence funding priorities worldwide. So you are also showing the consequence. That means C will come the last. Okay. Hence, discussions on AGI must grapple not only with feasibility but also with responsibility. Okay, I hope it's making sense. Not 15 but at least 10 seconds. See, if you would practice enough and if you would stick to your logic, you would not have to go through the answer again or verify it. That's the point I'm trying to make, that you should have done so much of practice. क्वांट भी सॉल्व करते हो ना, क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करते हो, आंसर आता है ना, क्या जाके पूरा प्रोसेस रीचेक करोगे? एक यू विल गेट अ वैल्यू एज योर आंसर, वुड यू गो बैक अगेन टू रीचेक the whole solution? No, that would be the wastage of time. And क्यों आपको पता है कि आपका आंसर आया है? वो conviction कैसे आया? वो practice से आया conviction. तो जब हम quant में practice कर सकते हैं, so why are we not doing the same for this verbal ability? Right? You have to take it that way only. It's not something that you can learn and just go ahead with it. You have to take it that way and give it enough time, give it ample time for practice. Okay? So that was all for today's section. I hope it helped you, and I'm hoping to see you in my next live as well. That is your next week. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.